Well, good morning, everyone. Happy 4th of July. It's great to be speaking as the opening act for the 4th of July parade. This is really an exciting thing. I have learned my lesson, though. Don't compete with major events. I one time got talked into speaking at a Sunday night service at a large mega church on Super Bowl Sunday. It was in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I remember that was the church. It was the Super Bowl. This is how long ago. It was the New York Giants won. It was Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor and that whole gang. Yeah, the six of us circled up the chairs that evening and really had a great time, and then I missed the Super Bowl, too, so that was like a total Captain Destructo moment. That was really bad. So I am really delighted to be here. We're going to be talking about some marriage and family issues, and we have printed outlines. If you didn't get one, just put your hand up, and we'll get one to you if you want one. Yeah, there's some folks that missed out, Ben. Thank you. And I'm calling this series Family Success 2.0 to try to sound young and hip. Okay? And basically, I want to tell you what the little angle is here so that you can follow along with me and see if this makes any sense to you. Over this week, I'm going to be giving you some messages that I put together quite some time ago, like when my 5 kids were all little. And they're now in their late 30s and in their 40s. And so it occurred to me as I looked over these old notes, you know, did you actually practice what you preached, or did you just wag a finger at everybody else while your kids, you know, did whatever they pleased? And so if you will indulge me this week, I hope to create a model for you. We're going to do a little teaching on the family, and then we're going to end it with my personal report card of how I think I did on some of these things that I was telling you to do. And I would hope that you might be able to feel that as well. Just want to make sure this is going to be appropriate to everybody. Where are the married couples in the room? Would you put your hand up? Okay, good. Very popular here at Cannon Beach. All right. Where are the parents in the room? Would you put your hands up? Okay. Where are the grandparents in the room? Would you put, yeah, lots of grandparents. So see, this is where the 2.0 kind of like, oh, I'm looking back, did this work or not? Where are the folks who have or at one time had parents? Would you raise your hand? Not as many as I had thought on that last one, but I just want you to know that I hope you feel that this is going to be appropriate to you and something that you will enjoy. And one other brief word of introduction before we jump into this. I want you to know that it's always great to be here, and I have the most wonderful wife. I just want to introduce her right out of the boat. Everybody wants to meet Mrs. Butterworth. So let's get that covered. Kath, would you stand and say hi, and we'll welcome Mrs. Butterworth. And what a treat to be on the same program with Lee Strobel. Now, lots of times when I'm the other speaker, it's like, hi, I'm Bill Butterworth, nice to meet you. But what you may or may not know is the Strobels and the Butterworths go way back. And we are very dear friends. And I don't think Lee's here. He's probably figuring he should sleep. And that's part of what I'll be doing this week is heckling Lee Strobel with stories of why it's really a treat to have him as one of my best friends. But I will tell you in the honest truth, about 7 years ago, the Strobels left Southern California and moved to a suburb of Houston, Texas called The Woodlands. And we were living at Southern California at the time, so we had to say goodbye to some of our dearest friends. And then about 5 years ago, on a calm, quiet Sunday afternoon, I got a text from Lee that said, hey, the house next door to us just went on the market. Why don't you come be our neighbor? And I laughed and thought, oh, that Lee, what a funny fellow. While Kathy is on the internet already checking out realtor.com, and we're looking at the real estate differential between Southern California houses and Texas houses. We moved and became the Strobel's neighbors 5 years ago. We're not quite next door. We didn't act fast enough. That was sold within a week, but we moved within 5 minutes of where they live, and we've been great friends. We've vacationed together. I got so many fun stories. You won't believe what a fool he is for how bright and astute he is when he speaks. So we're going to keep him humble this week. It's going to be really, really good. You'll want to be here for no other reason to hear the Lee Strobel heckle stories, and then you can go back to sleep, okay? Okay. Everything I know about family success, I think I learned in 8th grade. And 8th grade was, of course, when a boy like me took metal shop. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, product of the Philadelphia Public Schools. Things were very simple back then. All schools in our district were junior highs. There were no intermediate schools. There were no middle schools. It wasn't 6, 7, 8. It was 7, 8, 9. It was 7 and 8, junior high. And for boys, it was also very sexist back then because boys took shop and girls took home ec. And, of course, we've come a long way, baby, right? It's now equally important that my boys know how to cook and that my daughter knows how to weld. But back then, if you were a 7th grade Philly boy, you had wood shop in preparation for 8th grade heavy metal shop. So our metal shop teacher was quite a piece of work. He was constantly getting in trouble with the Philadelphia school system because he felt it was appropriate to smoke in class. And so this always created an issue, and he came up with a way to teach the class and still get his nicotine habit handled. At the beginning of the semester, he said, okay, boys, you have all semester to make one metal shop project. You're going to live or die, pass or fail, off this one metal shop project. Anybody have any questions about that? Good. If you need me, I'll be down in the faculty lounge. Leaving us all semester to just wreak havoc, do whatever we want. It was crazy because we knew that this was this guy's style. And the year previous at 8th grade graduation, graduating 8th grade boys handed a list to incoming 8th grade boys, metal shop projects that can be made in 1 week or less. So I never really thought of myself as particularly daring, but I waited till the last day to make my project because I was going to go to the top of the list. And according to this list, the easiest metal shop project to make was a screwdriver. All right? You take a steel rod, you cut it the right length, you put it in a fire, get it red hot, pull it out, put it on an anvil, gather a group of guys around you to hum the anvil chorus. You take that hammer, you pound down to one side, you turn it over, you pound down the other, cut that yellow thing into a handle, drill a hole in the middle, put the rod in the handle, let it cool, let it dry, ta-da, screwdriver. Any idiot could do this. Well, I was soon to discover I'm not just any idiot. I cut the rod the right length, I pounded it down and got it red hot, pulled it out, got the guy, boy, I hit that thing so hard. Didn't realize my strength at the time, apparently, but I flattened way more of the rod than the average screwdriver should experience. I looked at the clock, there really wasn't time to start again. I found out you can't take red hot steel and kind of reshape it. You know, you're committed, you got to go with it. So at least I made it even on both sides. Spent a lot of time on the handle, if I may say so. I thought I made a beautiful handle. Put the rod in the handle, let it cool, let it dry. It was official. It was the ugliest screwdriver you have ever seen in your life. I know this like it was yesterday. Thankfully, my therapist has been very helpful in walking me through this. We believe this is the first moment that I was introduced to the term depression. Couldn't sleep that night, had nightmares, you know what, I'm going to go to class and I'm going to flunk, and then next year I'm going to go to high school, and in the middle of every day of high school, the principal's going to get on the intercom, Mr. Butterworth, please report to the bus to take to the junior high school to repeat, junior high, you moron. And I'd have to do metal shop all over again. So I show up the last day of class, Everybody else is all excited. There's a buzz in the air, there's energy. There's a rumor, that the teacher's going to make a guest appearance. There's all this, hoopla going on. And sure enough, in a great cloud of yellow smoke, the teacher walks in, and he comes to the front of the room, and I'll never forget. He says, "Now, gentlemen, I've taught shop for many years. I've seen metal shop projects come. I've seen metal shop projects go. I have never, ever seen a project like the one made by Mr. Butterworth. Mr. Butterworth, would you please come to the front?" And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. Who certified this guy? Where did he get his credentials to be a school teacher? And I remember he put his arm around me, and he's like, "Oh, how can I find the words to describe this project? Oh, my God." And he's just off into la-la land talking about this project. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? This is so demoralizing, so degrading, it's humiliated. He finishes his speech by saying, "And so, gentlemen, it gives me great delight to announce that this year's Metal Shop Project of the Year award goes to Mr. Butterworth for his chisel." And it was right at that moment that I learned the value of the phrase, "go with the flow." I grabbed the mic, thanked everyone that made this award possible, my mom, my dad, my agent, my producer, all the little people. All the boys are out there. "Hey, I thought it was a screw." No, we have no time for any questions from the press. You're all beautiful people. God love you. And I was off to the limo. So it raises a fascinating theological question. Why would God allow an 8th grade boy to make a screwdriver that would become an award-winning chisel? Well, if you're like me, you can make that story illustrate 842 different things. But today, what I'd like to emphasize is the audacity of anybody talking about success in family life and giving the impression that it was all my doing is crazy. I was working on screwdrivers all those years. Now, I have to say, I think I ended up with some really decent kids, but they're award-winning chisels. I mean, I don't know where it happened. I don't know. I can't honestly explain, humanly speaking, why anything happens the way it does. And I start with that because some of you need to hear that right out of the gate, because it's like, oh no, he's speaking on family. Am I going to get harangued again because I got a wacka-wacka for a son, or, I've broken so many homes, or I've done, listen, we are all sinners who had kids that are sinners, who married sinners. I mean, it's not who's better than someone else. But what we want to see over these next few days is some truth from God's word about what it would look like if we could have it all come together. And I want you to start by turning to Psalm 127, and you'll see right out of the gate how this works. Psalm 127, just one of my favorite psalms. It's unique in that if you're like me, a good old church kid, you think of the Psalms, you think of King David, who, of course, is responsible for most of the Psalms. But interestingly enough, if you look at the inscription on Psalm 127, it's actually a Psalm of Solomon, who is not really attributed many Psalms. He's got all the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and his song. But here's a Psalm of Solomon who begins right with the most significant truth. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. It's vain for you to rise up early, to retire late, to eat the bread of painful labors. For he gives to his beloved even sleep. Behold, children are a gift from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. They're like arrows in the hand of a warrior. So are the children of one's youth. How blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They shall not be ashamed when they speak with their enemies at the gate. You can tell from your printed outline what I want to emphasize are 3 main points in doing so, and I'd like to use a teaching technique that Jesus totally nailed in his earthly ministry, and all the school teachers know it. It's the principle of contrast. Oftentimes you can accent what is true by contrasting it to what is false. Okay? For example, if you want to fill in the blanks for number one, it is this: God is the builder, not humans. God is the builder, not humans. So for the person who comes to a topic like this, riddled with guilt, ultimately, it's not your fault that everything is as messy at home as it is right now. Now, we're not going to let you completely off the hook. That doesn't mean, oh man, I can really be decadent and God's just going to go off and raise my family. No, we're not going to that extreme. But please see what the verse says. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain. It doesn't say unless the father builds the house, unless the mother builds the house, unless the firstborn, who's always picking up where everybody else left off and carrying all the weight, pulls it off, unless the baby pulls it off, because the baby gets whatever the baby wants. Married to a baby, right? Right? Busted. Yeah, sink down in your chair. You should, dude. You are so busted. All right. He'll be taking tomorrow's session. That's great. Okay. It's not about the human, it's about God's blessing on the family. I mean, if I want to write it out in a more complicated form, to me, Psalm 127:1 teaches the unmistakable priority of the spiritual dimension in your home. I'll say it again. It teaches the unmistakable priority of the spiritual dimension in your home. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. God is the builder, not humans. Verse 2, it goes on to say, it's vain for you to rise up early, to retire late, or to eat the bread of painful labors, for he gives his beloved sleep. So I have as subpoints, if God is not in it, it won't help to work any longer. Secondly, if God's not in it, it won't help to work any harder. That is so countercultural to any generation of any country. We've all been taught, you just work harder. You just work smarter. You'll get it figured out. You'll pull it off. But don't forget where the verse begins. It's unless the Lord is in it. It doesn't matter that you're giving all that extra time and now you're hyper frustrated because, wow, I'm investing so much into the life of my family and I don't see any result coming from it. Well, God hasn't done his work yet in your family, and maybe it's because you haven't fully surrendered the family to God's work in their life. And so we start with a very important concept. God is the builder, not humans. Now, personally, I get big time excited about that. Not only because it gives me a little less guilt of, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. But also, I love the analogy. God is the builder. You are looking at the most non-tool-oriented builder, I love a trip to Home Depot kind of guy you would ever imagine. I don't do well with tools at all. I mean, I'm as old as I am. I'm still learning the names of the tools so that when Kathy asks me to hand her one, I know what to hand her. She goes to Home Depot like it's, oh my gosh, it's a class field trip. We'll pack a lunch, we'll spend the day. I think they sell cots. We can stay there overnight. It's like, I don't get this, and it's crazy because our entire home career has always been kind of by a fixer-upper, right? And that implies someone is going to fix it up. And I feel for her. That's a lot of pressure that she's under. Man, in those early days, I'd say, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Make me a list of what you need, and I'll go over to the hardware store, and I'll get it. And she would make a list, and I'd go over, and we worked this out. The Home Depot guy, there was one guy at the store who was like, he's my guy. He knows what he's dealing with here. And I would wait for him. If he was serving another customer, I wouldn't let any other person wait on me because they would be insulting me. And so I would just watch this guy, and we had a little code. If he knew that I was waiting for him, it was because I'd be over and I'd be playing in the nails. You know those barrels of nails they have at the hardware. I'd just be kind of playing in those nails, and he'd come over and say, "Okay, what's your wife want this weekend?" I hand him the list and go, "Ooh, second story, that's big stuff." And and then we'd go through, and he would try to teach me the names of the parts and the tools. These are beams, and these are studs and carburetors, and I don't know what this stuff was. And I would take it home, and she would build it. And the point I'm making, why I love this analogy is, if heaven forbid an earthquake hit here and you were all dependent on me for shelter, folks, all is lost. All right? So when he's saying you better read your tsunami instructions, he's not kidding, because if it happens while I'm up here, we're all dead, right? I mean, it's done. So I am so grateful that God is the builder, because if it were up to me as a builder, you can just flash this word on my forehead: inadequate, 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 inadequate. Guess what word's on my forehead in terms of my marriage? Inadequate, inadequate, inadequate. I got 5 kids. You think I could have figured it out, right? Inadequate, inadequate, inadequate. We have 11 grandkids now. Inadequate, inadequate, inadequate. And I hope you understand that you're in the same situation, that we're all just trying to figure out how this works. So, number 1, God is the builder, not humans. If God's not in it, won't help to work any longer, won't help to work any harder. Number 2, again, using the principle of contrast. Children are rewards, not punishments. Nice to hear a little snicker there. This must be too close to home to some. I get worried about the gritted teeth laughter. Trying to be funny up there, blonde boy, aren't you? Yeah. You want to come home with us after this week is over? You want to see what punishment really is? Children are a gift of the Lord, it says. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Okay? What a great passage there. Children are a gift of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Fruit of the womb, we're talking kids, not underwear here. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Children are rewards, not punishments. And then Solomon uses another analogy. They're like arrows in the hand of a warrior. So are the children of one's youth. If you're here and you're a parent, you are the warrior and your kids are the arrows. Okay? And so that's a good place just to camp for a little bit, but I won't. I'll just move on. But it's like we're talking about a culture that seems to have a child-centered view of the family. The kids tell the parents what they're going to do when they're going to do it, okay? And we got the arrows shooting the warriors. That doesn't make any sense. That's gobbledygook. It's the warriors who should be using the arrows to shoot into their life, okay? So think about this for a second. You got a bow and arrow. The first thing I think that you realize is you're going to take that arrow and you're going to put it in that bow, and as the warrior, what you're going to do is you're going to pull that bowstring back, and then you're going to let it go. Okay? Well, I can see 2 very significant things that are happening in that process. It's letter A under number 2. Children need direction and motivation. They need direction and motivation. Direction is he's got that bow, she's got that bow and pulled back, and she's aiming it in the proper place so that it'll hit the target. And then what happens? Let go. Launch that child into the right direction, okay? And so direction and motivation, launch the child in the way that they should go. Now, the other thing that I had to remind myself was remember, when Solomon is writing this, we're before the days of the factory mass-produced arrows, where they all look the same. They're perfectly aerodynamic. Every arrow was different. So the subpoint of B is each child is unique. To say you have 5 children is not to imply you have 5 identical arrows. They're all different. They're all different. Now, I understood this even years ago when I was first teaching this stuff. I realized, man, this is where I made a big mistake. All 5 of our kids looked identical when they were born. Little blonde toe heads, round faces, little squeezable cheeks, just love them, want to take them home with you. But they didn't grow up being that way. They grow up so differently. I mean, to this day, I have kids that are brilliant with the computers, and I have kids that are musical, and I have kids that are artistic, and I have kids that are athletic, and kids that are super smart, and kids that aren't. They're all over the place. Well, early on, I learned the lesson because I conducted a scientific experiment. It went like this. It was Wednesday night. Wednesday night was notorious in the Butterworth house. It was new recipe night. Ooh, I still get a little bit of a chill up my back when I think about that. You know, it was crazy because some nights the new recipe was outstanding, but other nights it just wasn't working. Well, there was this it wasn't working night, and it was like a chicken and rice casserole kind of thing. And the timer goes off in the oven, and the kids all run and get around the table, and they're ready to go. And their mom and I pull this casserole dish and put it on the stovetop, and we can't wait. We take a little taste, and we both taste it, and at the same moment, we say in unison, "Bad food." Whoa, something really bad went wrong in the oven. So I'm heading for the cereal and the cereal bowls. Hey, kids, it's a Cheerios night, And all of a sudden, she stops me. She says, "Wait." I said, "What?" She says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to feed them cereal." She says, "That's not good enough." I said, "Well, then I've got it." "What?" "Let me feed this casserole to the children." She said, "You're sick." I said, No. Listen, this will be a good social exercise. We will observe how they behave eating bad food in a social situation. She says, "You're crazy." I had 5 dishes of it all. Put the first one. My first is my oldest and my only daughter, Joy. Joy believes in the stare technique. If you look at bad food long enough on a plate, God's going to give it legs and it's going to crawl away. All right? That didn't work. I have 4 sons after that. Jesse, oldest son, he looks at it and he goes into theatrics. "Hey, gross. We're giving him the evil eye. That's not acceptable. Jeffrey's next. All the pressure's on him. The 2 most common methods have already been discredited. He's looking at it. He goes, "Oh man, this is bad." He takes one and feeds it to the dog. Almost got away with it, but the dog goes over in the corner, starts going. We're talking bad food here, folks. John, next son, John chewed the food but didn't swallow the food. And we didn't find this out till bedtime with a deposit on his nightstand. And then Joseph was a baby. He was in a high chair. He didn't know any better. He ate the entire casserole undisturbed by animal or human. So if it works that way with bad food, it works that way with life. Every one of your kids is different. And I would say, especially in the grandparenting role, we're starting to see how we can just quietly, not overpowering the parents. That's a big mistake. You won't live to tell that one. But just quietly help the child, the grandchild, discover their uniquenesses and where they might want to head. And you're not the warrior, you're not launching, but you're helping them see where they might be effective in their future. God is the builder, not humans. Children are rewards, not punishments. The last one is actually spilling over to the next Psalm, Psalm 128, verse 3, where it says, your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house, and your children like olive plants around your table. Number 3 is families should grow from attention, not suffer from neglect. Families should grow from attention, not suffer from neglect. We've shifted motifs. We're not the handyman builder of Psalm 127. Now in 128, we're a gardener. And the gardening motif, in case you're wondering, still works the same for me. I can still remember the kids saying, let's get Dad a plant for a gift and let's watch him kill it. That whatever the opposite of a green thumb is, that's what I have. And I could offer very good reasons. You know, I didn't give it enough water, or I didn't give it sunlight, or I didn't weed it enough. It was all a lack of attention. And there we go again. Because families should grow from attention, not suffer from neglect. I divided it into 2 sayings as the sum points. Letter A, families need our time, and B, families need our focus. Now, you have to come to grips with all this. I mean, it works out differently for lots of different people. But I want to tell you, this is such good material from God's Word that offers a wonderful foundation to get this thing started. So before I sit down and before we go to the parade, let me just give you my report card. I'll start where I felt the best. Point 2. I never felt that my kids were punishments for more than 10 minutes at a time, okay? I mean, sure, they would frustrate me and they would drive me up the wall. But I never felt like these 5 are crazy. I wished we had only had 3, or wish we had only had 1, or, you know, we should have, you know, looked at abstinence more, you know. No, I very humbly would give myself an A on point 2. Point 3, I would give myself kind of a B-, high C. I mean, there was really a ridiculous irony going on in my life that I was going all over the country telling people, you need to spend more time with your family. And because I was doing it all over the country, I wasn't spending as much time with my family as I should. But because I was preaching it to people and it seemed to bounce off and come back to me, by the time I got back home, I was trying to make up for lost time. And my kids will tell you, I missed a lot of weekend Little League games and soccer games, but I tried to make it up by being, well, nobody else has a dad that'll take them out for an ice cream sundae on Wednesday as soon as school's out at 2:20, because Dad's just hanging around on a Wednesday, all right? So there's trade-offs. So I'd say low B, high C. Number 1, God is the builder, not humans. I think I flunked. I think I failed that one. I convinced myself of something really stupid, and that was, these kids are so fortunate. I go all over the country teaching really good stuff. If they want to know this, they should travel with me and be right up here on the front row, filling in the blanks. And it never dawned on me, hey, Dad, they're not showing up. They heard it once. They don't want to hear it over and over and over again. If you tell that bad food story one more time, we're going to take legal action, you know. So I feel like I missed a huge portion of their lives in being a spiritual influence in their life. I owe it to Kath, who confronted me and said, look, you know what? You can't just drop it. I mean, it's never too late. And years ago now, at Christmas time, I bought all the adult kids a copy of Oswald Chambers' My Utmost for His Highest, that devotional. Most of you know that one, okay? And I gave it to them all as a Christmas present. I said, you know what? We're going to read this together. Now, I can't make you read it, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to send everybody an email every day with what I got out of it. And we've done that now for 12 years, right? And we choose a different devotional every year. And I won't kid you, I don't get a lot of feedback. I don't get a lot of, oh, I wept with spiritual joy as you convicted me of sin, righteousness, and deliverance. You know, I occasionally get a, Dad, there's a typo in the devotional this morning. But hey, the word doesn't return void, right? And I blew it in the beginning, but I'm hoping I'm helping to make up for it a little bit here at the end. So that's my 2.0 report card. Why don't you think about that a little bit before we get together again tomorrow, okay? Let's pray. Lord, thank you for this beautiful psalm that you inspired King Solomon to write. Unless the Lord builds the house, we're laboring in vain. Give us that unmistakable supremacy of a spiritual dimension in our homes. Help us to rejoice with our children and our grandchildren and be there for them. In the strong name of Jesus, I pray these things. Amen. Amen. You need to tell anybody anything? Okay, it's parade time, boys and girls. Put your hats on and wave hello to Uncle Sam. See ya.